Hello. All right. We're live. Hi, Sarah. Give everything a minute just to see if anybody else shows up this morning. It's going pretty good. It's just the morning. Our kids are actually off school, so I'm home with them. So that'll be fun. But yeah, all right. Got some people coming in. Welcome, welcome. Happy to have you here. Hi, Allison. How's everybody doing today? And how far am I from Branson again? Branson, I'm like 4 hours from, 4 to 5 hours, I think. It's like further south. What was I gonna say? I forgot. Oh yeah. If anybody has any questions, feel free. I have kind of a list of like areas I want to go over as far as like the red flags and like dating and relationships. I blocked off about 30 minutes for this. It might go over because as I started going through things, I was like, oh, this is a little bit more than I initially thought. But we'll see. Go from there. But yes, if anybody has any questions or anything they would like to know or ask or get feedback on, feel free to ask those and leave those in the chat. Let me pull up my notes here and then we will kind of get started with it. Hello. So, let's see. All right. I'm going to be kind of reading notes. So if it looks funny, that's why. But anyways, all right. So topic of this month is red flags in dating and relationships. Now, I actually wanted to start with this to kind of talk about red flags in your marriage if you happen to still be married while going through this, because all of this, it happens in stages and, over time. And I know that for a lot of people, they can still be in the married stage of all of this, but there's still some red flags that can occur in this relationship. So starting with that, if you are married or still married, and let's say you are at the stage of coming out to your partner, some red flags with that could be, like reactions of your partner that are red flags in this are feeling really, really dismissed. Like, you share your sexuality and it seems like they just don't listen to you, sort of dismiss this idea, just want to like sweep it under the rug and act like nothing ever happened. Now, I want to note that when going through this, it's really, really normal for both you and your partner to go through the stages of grief. So stages of grief look different. They're similar but different than red flags. So you might see anger, you might see depression, you might see bargaining, you might see, get to acceptance, and I'm missing the other one right now. But anyways, the stages of grief are normal, but red flags are when this is like prolonged and ongoing. So coming out to your partner and just completely dismissed, that could be a red flag of the person, that your husband or partner that you are already in a relationship with. Now, the other thing with that too is making it all about themselves and never acknowledging how you might feel or be struggling. And again, normal to be hurt and to feel sad. But if you're with a man who literally isn't acknowledging how you might feel at all, this can also just be a red flag of the relationship and the dynamic that you have with your husband. Another thing is making threats to take the kids from you or ruin you financially, to take everything from you, saying that you're just going to be homeless on the side of the road, making threats to tell your personal business to everyone as a way to try and hurt you and to paint you as a bad guy. Again, people can lash out in anger, but escalating to this degree and making all of these threats are again a red flag of the person that you are currently with. A healthy, rational person will be hurt, they will be angry, but making threats at this level, that's a red flag of this individual. And just so anybody is aware, if you're watching, at least in the US here, and I feel like in most countries, I guess, unless you live in a country where LGBTQ is like against the law, your husband cannot take your kids from you just for being gay. That's not possible. My background even has worked with kids. I've seen kids in foster care systems. I've seen and heard horrendous stories of treatment of children from their biological parents, and courts still work to keep kids with their biological parents. So unless you are a drug addict who does drugs in front of your kids and like leaves them sitting in a car while you're like at a strip club or something, you're not going to lose the rights to your kids. So that puts it in any terms for you. But if you're with a partner who is threatening that and saying they're taking the kids and they're trying to keep them from you and saying that you're a terrible, horrible, awful person because you've now come out as a lesbian or gay or queer, whatever, that's pretty toxic. And that is a red flag of the individual that you're working with. So it's just something to keep in mind, as you're going through this process. And then finally, just if you're with a partner who is just refusing to communicate with you, you've come out, you shared how you feel, and this person is just refusing to talk to you, doesn't want to talk to you, just wants to go along and act like everything is normal and nothing has changed. Again, similar to the stage of grief where you may be in denial. That was the other one, denial. But just utterly refusing to talk to you. If you keep coming and being like, look, we need to talk about this, we need to like figure some things out, and they just won't talk to you. It's kind of a red flag of their ability to be in a relationship and work through this. And it's another one, this is serious, but if you're with somebody and you're at this stage where, you talk about your sexuality and maybe you're talking about the idea of divorce or separation, and if they threaten suicide, that is a red flag. Unless for some reason you already know that you are with somebody who has a past history of suicidal thoughts and tendencies, has mental health issues to that degree that this has been an ongoing thing, that like there's a history of it. If somebody's saying that they're going to kill themselves or threaten this, that is a very, very big red flag. That could be a control tactic that's trying to keep you there. I know that scares people a lot. And of course, none of us want to be responsible or not that we are responsible, but feel responsible that somebody would feel that way. But that is something that's on them to get help and support for those thoughts and that feeling, and you can help guide support to that, but nobody should ever feel like, oh, I can't be who I am because this person has now threatened suicide. Or even threatening to do any other type of like angry, violent thing. That isn't healthy. That is not normal. That is something that is very toxic in this person that they need help with. So if you are in any of those situations, just be aware this isn't you. This isn't like your cross to bear, your burden, and that this doesn't mean that you need to take everything back. These are red flags that need to be addressed and need to be worked on, whether that's in therapy or counseling or support groups. Those are issues that are kind of showing that this relationship and dynamic isn't a healthy one. So I also now want to move on to your own red flags if you're still married. And this might be sensitive and it might be hard to hear, but it's a little bit of tough love. But these are kind of red flags of the marriage and the relationship if you are exhibiting any of these things. So first with this is if you're lying and cheating on your husband with a woman and hiding it from your husband. I know that a lot of women in this situation go through this. I did it myself. Where you meet a woman, this is like your catalyst, and you develop feelings for this woman and you're seeing this woman to some degree, but you're lying about it and you're hiding it from your husband. This is a red flag. This is not a normal, healthy relationship behavior. And it should be something that, and I think this is what clearly wears on a lot of women. This is typically what a lot of women reach out to me for because they've met a woman and now they don't know what to do. But this is a red flag for your marriage and your relationship. This is indicating something isn't right. People in healthy, happy relationships don't end up in these types of situations. I can speak for myself. I went through things and I did things when I was married to my husband that I would never fathom doing now that I'm with my wife and, living as I truly am. Now, your own red flags too could be you being the one to refuse to communicate. If your husband is asking questions and wanting to talk through things and wanting to try to problem solve, and you're just shutting down and refusing to communicate, that's kind of your own red flag in this situation too. It's kind of along those same lines of being distant, avoidant, and dismissive of your husband. If you are with a male partner who wants to spend time with you and wants to be with you and is trying to facilitate, a romantic relationship and dynamic, and you just are distant and dismissive and don't really want to be around him, that's a red flag. That is speaking very loud of the true dynamic of the relationship and where your heart truly lies in the relationship. Again, a healthy relationship, you want to be involved with your partner. You want to be there. You want to talk. You want to connect. You want to work through things. But if you're distant and avoidant, dismissive, that's a red flag. Then kind of to build on that, you have no sex life. There's no intimacy. There's nothing like that. You've pulled away. You don't want physical contact or sexual contact with your male partner. And again, a lot of women go through this on this journey, but that's not typical in a, again, healthy, normal, thriving relationship. You should want to be intimate with the person that you're with. And yes, things come up and people are legitimately tired and kids add stress to situations, but that want and that desire and that want for connection with your partner should still be there. So if you've completely pulled away and you don't want that, again, it's kind of your own red flag to be aware of. This is a sign of, again, not a truly healthy relationship. And then the final one that I have with this is you've told your husband about your sexuality, but you're still clinging to him and you don't want to let him go. That kind of speaks volumes of some of your own attachment issues and insecurity with yourself. It's scary. I get it. All of this right here is what my Coming Out on the Other Side program is for, is to help you work through all of these things, to help you build that confidence to be able to detach if that's the right choice for you. Typically it is, because usually all the red flags that I've talked about here are present when women realize that they're lesbians while with men. But that's what that helps to work through, is to build that confidence, to help you know that you can be okay on your own and be confident in being who you are. And again, I know it's hard and it takes time and people have to do it on their own process. And it's really difficult to leave something that you potentially feel safe in, for something that's sort of a unknown. But if you're clinging to an individual when you don't want to talk to him, you don't want to be intimate with him, you actively kind of avoid him to some degree, and but yet you just want to cling to him just for safety and security, it's kind of a red flag for yourself too. So those are all of the red flags for if you were still kind of in a marriage. And a lot of these kind of apply to if you were to be in a relationship with a woman, but we'll go into dating women red flags. So if anybody has a question or any thoughts, feel free to leave them in the chat. Take a drink of my coffee. Anyways, let's see. Now, like I said, I'm going to go into red flags with dating. So if you are past the point of being with your husband, or, even if you are, like I said, maybe you were at the stage where you've mutually agreed to open up your marriage. Some of that's a little bit different too, that if you are on the same page with your husband, male partner, and you've agreed to open up your marriage and you are starting to meet women. Again, even opening up your marriage and trying to date and balance all of that, I honestly don't know of anybody that's made it work long term. But let's just say you're trying to put yourself out there, or again, you're past this, you actually have separated, or you're thinking of separating and starting to date. So first one with that is a hot and cold game. This would be coming on really strong, someone acting like really interested, and then pulling back and disappearing. And then coming back again and acting really interested, checking in, seeing how you are. And then all of a sudden disappearing. So it's hot and cold, on, off, back and forth, hot and cold. Yeah. And kind of along those same lines is mixed signals. So again, somebody comes along, they seem really interested, maybe they're flirting and, you know, just, yeah, giving you all the signs that they would be interested. But then all of a sudden, again, they pull away, or they say, you know, it's too much, too fast, or they just want to be friends, or they're actually not ready, and really throwing these mixed signals back and forth. It's really telling you something's going on with this person. Again, if somebody's interested and somebody likes you, they will continue to be there for you and show up. And it's okay to be scared, and it's okay to have fears and worries, because this is a lot to re-enter the dating field after being married or with a man for however many years, and to kind of come back on the scene to this dating world. It can be a lot and it can be overwhelming. But this push and pull back and forth, I'm really interested, maybe I'm not, except that's kind of a sign that maybe you actually aren't ready to be dating, and you should take some time, you know, for yourself. This is something that we were talking about in the Coming on the Other Side group. But the idea too that you can actually heal a lot in a relationship, but you have to be self-aware. So like, you have to be aware even too, like, or if you're dating somebody, they would need to be aware that they act this way, and that they actively want to work on it, and they communicate it, and they acknowledge the issue, and they continue to show up and be present, you know, and to try to work through this with you. If somebody wants to be with you and somebody is really interested in you, they will put in the work and put in the effort. But if, yeah, they're having this back and forth, mixed signal, hot, cold, it's all red flags of what they may have going on with themselves. All right, then next would be controlling behaviors, you know, wanting to know where you are, what you're doing, have access to your phone. And it's normal to want to know where people are and what they're doing, but like, to an excessive degree, getting bothered, you know, if they don't know, getting upset, getting angry, accusing you of things, you know, if they don't know where you are for a period of time, you know, and being like, you know, why? Well, you know, what were you doing? Were you hiding something from me? Like, did you not want me to know where you were? You know, like this sort of insecure, controlling behavior where they're almost making you feel bad for just living your life to some degree. Very much so red flags. Like, you should be able to be your own person, have your own life. And again, it's respectful to communicate where you are and what you're doing. But when you got somebody that's really, really insecure and making you feel like you're doing something wrong when you're not actually doing anything wrong, that's kind of a great one anyway. If somebody's making you feel like you're doing something wrong when you're not, that's a red flag too. You know, that again speaks to their insecurity and some issue that they're likely having. I experienced things like that. And half the time, people that were projecting things onto me, they were actually doing themselves. So definitely a red flag. Kind of along. Oh, this absolutely applies to friendships too. Totally applies to friendships. I mean, it's any type of relationship really. Is you can be your parents, your family members, your siblings, you know, all of this could apply to anybody. You know, we all have issues, but things that can be, you know, more so red flags, like this is an issue that really needs to be addressed. You know, yeah, anybody can have these. So kind of with that too, wanting to dictate who you talk to, you know, who your friends are. And potentially too, in this situation, this is such a sensitive situation that the majority of us have like ex-husbands, and a lot of us have kids, you know, so a lot of us will still have to have some type of relationship and dynamic with our ex-husband to be co-parents for our kids. And if you're with somebody who is really bothered and threatened by that dynamic relationship and is trying to dictate what that relationship and dynamic looks like, that's very much so kind of a red flag too. You know, excuse me. I dated a few women that were like that. And when I first started dating, I thought, oh, okay, you know, I just must not understand dating. And maybe I am too close to my ex-husband. Maybe I haven't attached enough. But I had some people who were really trying to dictate that relationship. And again, it was one of those things where I really was never doing anything wrong. We talked and we were friendly and we did things together. We still do things together with our son. And so if somebody's trying to dictate that and tell you, it needs to be a certain way, it needs to look a certain way, you need to behave in that relationship a certain way, that's kind of a red flag. Not many people fully understand what this is like, and especially if you are entering into the LGBTQ plus community and maybe you meet somebody who's been a lesbian their whole life, that can be a little threatening, like if you have this relationship with a male partner. But again, it's their own issue and own insecurity if they are trying to dictate what that looks like when you really aren't doing anything wrong and you are just working with this partner for the sake of your kids. Yes. So let's see. Okay. Next would be never taking accountability. Nothing's ever their fault. They always have an excuse, something else to blame. Any relationship is a dynamic of two people. That's why I even talked about red flags in your marriage or relationships with your male partners, that there may be red flags he has, but there may be red flags you have too. And so if you're with somebody who can never take any accountability or never see anything that they may have done that was wrong to contribute, that's very much so an issue. Everybody, no matter what, plays a part, plays a role. And except you've got to be able to recognize that for this to be a healthy relationship. This is kind of a big one in lesbian relationships. Moving really fast. This is pretty common. Women just have a tendency to move fast. I moved fast with my wife, but I don't know. We kept, both of us kept looking for these red flags, and we both just kept finding, a really healthy partner in each other. But it's just something to be cautious and to be aware of, that it's very, very easy to get wrapped up emotionally with a woman. And I think that it can be okay to move fast if you can be aware if and when the red flags come out. What happens and what the issue is moving really, really fast and turning a blind eye to the red flags and feeling like you are completely in love with this person, even though a lot of red flags exist with this. So it's good to be aware of what the red flags are and to try to, yes, you get wrapped up emotionally very, very easily, but to recognize what's actually happening in the relationship. Is it a good relationship? Are you happy? Are you at peace? Are you starting to notice a lot of times where you feel attacked or blamed or not respected for your boundaries or what you're doing, or feeling like you're being controlled? It's good to be aware of that and not just dismiss those things and think, oh, this just must be dating a woman. Don't make excuses for somebody's behavior. And sorry, got distracted. There's kittens meowing outside. Where am I at? Oh, moving fast. So okay to move fast, but just try to keep that in your mind when you start to date, of the red flags that could be present as well. Okay, next I have is holding you to a different standard than they hold themselves. It's kind of just being hypocritical, expecting you to do and act and behave in one manner, but then they're doing the exact opposite. For example, let's say somebody is kind of threatened and bothered by your relationship with your ex-husband or your kid's dad, but let's say they have an ex-partner and kids with somebody else, and they're trying to tell you how you should behave with your partner, but then they're turning around and doing the same thing and behaving with their partner in the way they're telling you shouldn't. That is not okay. Again, that is a controlling and manipulative tactic. They want to have control over you. They're not actually respecting you in this dynamic that you have with your kid's parents or, your ex. So definitely something to keep in mind, that they should not be, holding you to a standard that they don't meet themselves. read this. Find that when one tries to override logic with love, something is already wrong. That's a very good point. Very good point. Let's see. Oh, we kind of talked about this with the red flags in your marriage, but same in a relationship and when you start dating. Again, refusing to communicate and talk with you and work with you through fights and disagreements. People that just want to sweep everything under the rug and act like everything's fine. If your feelings are hurt or something happens, you should be able to express that, and you should be able to talk about that. And that should be able to be something that can be worked through and moved through. But if you're with somebody who just always wants to say you're overreacting or say it's not a big deal, and they don't want to talk and don't want to communicate, that again is a red flag. Communication, openness, vulnerability is huge in a healthy relationship. So you need somebody that can do that with you. Kind of along with that, disrespecting your boundaries and pushing you for things that you aren't ready for. I feel like that one's kind of self-explanatory. If you have a boundary and you say, this is what I need, and they're just trying to push past that or say that that's a ridiculous boundary or anything like that, that's not okay. You should be with somebody who respects what you need for yourself. Gaslighting, that's kind of a standard red flag in a relationship. Gaslighting is, again, sort of denying the reality of the situation. It's, again, let's say your feelings are hurt because they did something, and then they're telling you that you're blowing it out of proportion. It's not a big deal, or it didn't happen that way. You're just making it up. That's somebody that's gaslighting you and your feelings. We can gaslight our own feelings too. Just something to keep in mind is if you feel a certain way, but then you're trying to tell yourself that you shouldn't feel that way, or, that's not okay, or you need to get over how you're feeling, that's kind of gaslighting your own emotions. So keep that in mind, because a lot of women going through this do this to themselves. They try to think that they just, again, with marriages and things like that, with kids, and they try to tell themselves, oh, I made a commitment, and this is the life that I have, and I just shouldn't feel this way, or it's too late for me, or, there's a lot of things that we say in our own heads that are essentially gaslighting our own feelings. But any type of gaslighting in a relationship, is a red flag. Kind of talked about this with, holding you to a different standard, but same with a person's actions don't match their words. So I keep going back to this, I think because I experienced this some, so this is kind of just an example I keep using. Let's say you're starting to date somebody who says, I'm totally fine with you, having a relationship with your kid's dad, I think it's great that you guys have a friendship. I say relationship, and I mean friendship, like a familial type of relationship, not like a romantic relationship. But then saying something like, I think that that's great. I think that it's important for you to be good co-parents together and do things for your kids. And then when you do things like that, they freak out and they start to feel insecure. They start to question you. They start to tell you that it's not okay. And whatever you did, if it was something super simple, let's just say you went to dinner together with your kid or something like that, that was, crossing the line and inappropriate and, something like that. So their actions aren't matching their words. I also experienced this some with women too, where I think it is important to have a fight with the person that you're with, because that says a lot about how they're able to handle their emotions and handle conflict. And I would often ask people, how they handle themselves in a fight. So everybody can say a bunch of really, really great things. But then when it was down to actually having a disagreement, it was interesting to see if their actions actually matched their words. And I found that for a lot of people, their actions did not match their words at all. So something else to keep in mind with that is, can they actually follow through on what they say? So kind of just some other things to be aware of in relationships is, and what is a healthy relationship versus kind of an unhealthy relationship, is that if you are in a relationship where there is stress and drama and fighting, and there's more stress and drama and fighting than happiness, that is a red flag too. Relationships should be healthy. Relationships should feel good. They should be easy. They should be peaceful. You should mutually work together through things. Healthy relationships don't mean that there's never conflict or hurt feelings, but it just means that you're capable of working through it together, that you respect each other. Oh, yeah, you're asking what are green flags. It's kind of what I'm going through with this right now, too. You should be able to feel safe to share how you feel. And yeah, you should be able to feel safe to share how you feel. You shouldn't have to feel stressed and worried and like, oh gosh, like, oh, this is another red flag, walking on eggshells, feeling like you're going to do the wrong thing, say the wrong thing, and you're going to set off the person that you're with. That is a huge red flag. A healthy relationship, you should feel comfortable to be who you are, say what you want, share like any thoughts that are on your mind. And again, like I said, doesn't mean that there won't be emotional reactions and responses to this, but they're able to be worked through. And then once they're worked through, both of you feel better. It's not like you work through something and you have to just like compromise everything that you were feeling and be like, okay, fine, I'll just, forget about my feelings and make sure that this person feels better so we can move on. That is not a healthy relationship. At the end of any type of conflict or emotional moment, you should both feel better. You should both feel that it's resolved and that you're able to move on. Yeah, so kind of some green flags. One other thing that I wanted to discuss and kind of caution women of. Many women, I'm going to take a drink of my coffee. My throat's getting dry. Let me read this. I find for me that I'm so used to red flags and walking on eggshells that I bring past experiences and relationships into new ones and just assume it'll be that way. So then I overthink as if I have to walk on eggshells with this person when I actually don't. I felt that way with my wife. I experienced a lot of these red flags in relationships. And honestly, even with my ex-husband, there were times that I felt like, there were red flags there and that I potentially had to walk on eggshells or be cautious of how I worded things, how I said things, how I presented some things. If I didn't do it in just the right way, I didn't know what reaction I was going to get. And I absolutely carried that over into the relationship with my wife. But again, having the relationship with her showed me so much of what a truly healthy relationship was. It was, again, that logic. Like I knew what a healthy relationship was and what the components should be. But it meant I was still scared. I had a lot of sort of negative experiences in my relationships with women and everything where I felt scared to share how I felt. I felt scared to open up because I didn't know the reaction, the response I was going to get, or I felt like my feelings were going to be dismissed. And so I still approached every relationship knowing that I wanted the healthy relationship. I wanted the person, the partner that I could talk to and work through. And so it kind of just took that bravery and that courage to go, you know what? This is what I want. I'm not going to settle for less. And so I'm going to open up and share my feelings. And if they're not well received and I experience these things, I'm going to take note of that. And if that's what keeps happening, then I'm going to be done with this relationship. And it's something that you just have to kind of work on. And again, my wife was really great about it. There were times that I would just sort of shut down and internalize things. But she would be really good about being like, hey, I can tell something's wrong. Like, you can tell me. It will be okay. This is where in the beginning of the relationship where actions matching words, her words were telling me like, it's okay. You can open up and you can share with me what you're feeling. Like, it's okay. Like, I'll listen. And I was like, okay, like, we'll see if the actions match the words. And when I would open up and share, her actions would match her words. She made me feel safe. She made me feel comfortable. She made me feel okay for sharing. And so all of this is what built like a healthy relationship dynamic. And this is what a healthy relationship dynamic should be. So yeah, I hope that kind of goes into that. I mean, yeah, it's normal to have these things that you carry into it, but it's being aware, which is great. You're aware and still waiting and trusting people, like giving them a chance to prove that they can actually work through this with you. And again, there might be times, emotions are so hard. There might be times that you share with somebody something and maybe it does trigger them too, because we all have our past traumas and our triggers, and maybe sharing something triggers that other person. But again, what you need to look for is, even though they got triggered and you're triggered and you're both upset, this is what typically escalates into fights. Can you both de-escalate, come back, talk through things, work it out? And again, both feel better, both feel heard, and be able to move forward. You're welcome. All right, let me go. Oh yeah. So the last kind of thing I wanted to talk about with all of this is a caution of like first lesbian relationships or catalyst relationships. So many women going through this meet a woman, which is typically the catalyst for them realizing their sexuality. And they feel things they've never felt before. They get really wrapped up in the emotions and all that. Or even if you didn't have a catalyst, but you just start dating, and it's like the very first relationship you ever have with a woman. A lot of times you're so excited and so ready and so happy to be having this relationship and this experience that you overlook the red flags. And I'm trying to think of like how exactly to word this. I just want to caution you, because a lot of times, some people get lucky, some people do, and sometimes it does work out really well. But a lot of times these first relationships are actually much more toxic and unhealthy than you may realize. Because again, you're so excited and you are so ready to get this opportunity to be with a woman, that you overlook so many unhealthy, toxic things. Or, as I was just reading, you are used to already dealing with so many unhealthy and toxic behaviors that you continue to think that this is normal, and it's not. So for me, when I went through this, I've always said, I felt I had an overall good relationship with my ex-husband, but we had our issues. I feel like a lot of couples do. When I was looking at marrying another partner or having another relationship, yes, I was excited and I was thrilled to finally get to date women and to have that experience. But I knew for me to settle down, that the relationship I was going to need to have had to be even better. It had to be healthy. It had to be, to meet all of these, green flags. It had to feel good. It had to feel peaceful. I had to feel heard and validated. I wanted all of those things. And so I would just caution you to not settle, to be aware of the red flags that may or may not be there. And something that happens with this is that when women get into this first relationship with another woman, you might even start to recognize these red flags. But that can also trigger sort of an insecurity in you to think, oh my gosh, this relationship actually may not be the best. And then it triggers all this fear and doubt and insecurity again, thinking, did I end my marriage with my husband to be able to be with this woman if it was, a catalyst for that, or to start dating somebody else, to then think about that relationship ending? And a lot of people then would want to cling on because they think like, I can't let this fail. Like, I can't let this relationship go. Like I have to make this relationship work. But that again isn't healthy. If these red flags are there, I promise you, there are other fish in the sea. There are other women out there. There are people there that will give you what you need from a relationship. And I just want to make sure that nobody ends up sort of stuck in another unhealthy relationship just because they're afraid, or they feel that they need to be in this relationship because it was the relationship that led to all of this for them. So, just something to keep in mind if you are going through this too. Let me see. What if you feel like you are the one giving off red flags, like anxious, attachment, clingy? How do you fix your own red flags? I haven't been told this about myself, but I just feel like it's a thing for me. I think just being aware, like your awareness is a huge first step. Like being aware that there are things that you need to work on with yourself. And like I said, in a healthy relationship, you can still have some of these things, but it's your ability to communicate and work through them with a partner. So if you find somebody who you are really interested in and you could potentially see a relationship with, being open, being honest, being vulnerable, these are hard things to do. But I said it kind of happens in steps. You're aware. So your awareness, you can actually start to kind of take some action on that. And again, like I said, a lot of people say, you need to work on yourself, you need to heal yourself, you need to do all of this before you date. And to some degree, yes. But I think that we can do a lot of healing when we are in relationships. And if you find that person that you can share these things with and who hears you and creates a safe space for you and is willing to work on things with you, as long as you're not continuously like sabotaging the relationship, but you are owning your behavior and you are aware and you want to work through it, I think that can still build into a healthy relationship and help you overcome some of those traumas that you have. But yes, also therapy and counseling and support groups. And I think that the awareness and figuring out a plan to take action, what can you do, for yourself to help, like in little degrees. So you mentioned too, self-sabotaging relationships and career-wise, maybe even picking some little things in each one of those that you want to try to work on and take some steps towards. Let me see. I think that is kind of wrapping up everything that I've had. If anybody has any questions or any other comments they want to leave here, go ahead. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about some additional support options if you want them or interested. So the relationship dynamic between, if you are still with a male partner, if you're still married, some of those red flags that we talked about in that type of relationship, if you're at that point, that is what the coming out on the other side support program that I run can help you work through, can help you figure out what's right for you, can help you talk through some of those things, can help you address some of your own red flags to build that confidence in knowing what's right for you and moving forward. Now, the other thing is, a lot of what I talked about is what happens sort of after that stage as well. And I have been thinking of creating a new program just for after coming out and potentially after separating from a male partner and starting to date women on how to create healthy relationships moving forward. So just something I'm thinking about. If anybody would be interested in that, let me know. Because I definitely want to give you guys what you feel you need to get through all of this. Let's see. I find I no longer have the patience to ignore red flags. Yes, too old, too jaded, too many responsibilities, more settled in my life, older, but wiser, more selfish, etc. Yes, absolutely. I was getting to that point too. I had a kid. I had gone through all of this. I came out and I was like, I don't have the patience. Yeah. During the time of dating, I probably had way more patience than I should have had. I know I made a lot of excuses for people, and that's the thing too. There's a red flag also. If you were consistently having to make excuses for the person that you're with, that's a red flag. I kept having to try to justify their behavior or rationalize their behavior. Shouldn't have to do that. Like, that is not okay. But yes, sometimes this comes in age. And with the more confidence that you build in yourself and like the more at peace you are with yourself, the less you have time to deal with other people's issues. So yeah, I completely agree. All right. Anybody else see how to say, is it? Yeah, I see typing. So I'll give it just a second. Yeah, I hope that this was helpful for you all. And if anybody has any other, I'll put another post in the community. If anybody has any other topics that they want me to go over, I think somebody asked me to do a topic on divorce, like the process of divorce and different things like that. So that might be next month's topic. But yeah, if anybody ever has any areas or certain things they want me to cover, feel free to post those in the community, or you can message me in the community and just be like, hey, I would, if you could cover this topic, I think that would be really great or really helpful. Appreciate the stream. Thank you. It makes me appreciate what I have in my relationship. Yeah. Yep. I used to think other people knew more about relationships than I know more. Everyone is just figuring things out as they go along. Yes. Yeah. I mean, and I agree. I think that we all have to figure this out. It is a journey. It is a process. I genuinely think that some people get lucky. I tell my wife, so my wife dated one woman before me who was also partially her catalyst. And then her and I met. And I always say, I'm like, God, you're so lucky that you didn't have to go through all of the dating of, because I dated multiple people, and I definitely had a few years of just various relationships with women. And it was rough, but it was also knowing that I wasn't going to settle for anything that didn't bring me peace, that didn't bring me happiness, that didn't add to my life. Those are all things too. Relationships should add to your life, not take away from your life. They should lift you up. They should make you feel safe. They should support you, through hard times. Like, that should be a partnership in a healthy relationship. And I was like, I'd already been through too much to settle for anything less. But oh my goodness, yeah, some people get lucky and they find a really good partnership early on, and that's great. And I am thrilled for people with that. But yeah, if you're struggling and you're dating, these are all things just to be aware of, so that you don't end up in a relationship that is unhealthy. It can be hard to meet women in general. And again, it's hard to meet women that are actually self-aware of these things. Again, it's okay to have your issues, but it's turning a blind eye and not wanting to work on it, and, again, projecting all that onto somebody else. So, all right, everyone, I'm going to wrap this up. We did go over. I kind of had a feeling that we would, but thank you so much for being here. And as I said, just if there's any other topics you want me to address, send me a message or leave a comment in the community, because I definitely want to give you guys insight on what it is that, you want help with. So, all right, you're welcome, guys. Thank you. Have a good day.